In the remote town of Ravenswood, nestled between rolling hills and dense woodlands, there existed a place that no one dared to enter, Blackwood Forest. The forest was ancient, its towering trees shrouded in perpetual shadow, even on the brightest of days. The townsfolk whispered tales of the forest, of strange occurrences and eerie sounds, but these were just stories to frighten children. Or so they thought. It all began one crisp autumn morning when young Tommy Carver went missing. He had been playing near the edge of Blackwood Forest with his friends, but when his mother called him in for supper, he never came. The search parties scoured the forest, calling his name, but there was no sign of the boy. His disappearance sent a ripple of fear through the town, but nothing could prepare them for what was to come. Days later, Tommy emerged from the forest, disheveled and silent. His once bright blue eyes were dull and lifeless, and when his mother tried to embrace him, he recoiled, as though he didn't recognize her. The doctors could find nothing physically wrong with him, but Tommy was different. He would sit for hours, staring into space, whispering to himself. When asked what had happened, he would only mutter about the whispering man. As the weeks passed, more children began to vanish. Each time the pattern was the same. They would venture near the forest, lured by something unseen, and then disappear. Some returned, like Tommy, altered in ways that no one could understand. Others never came back at all. The town was gripped with terror. Parents forbade their children from going near the woods, but the disappearances continued. The children who returned were not the same. They became distant, their personalities shifting into something unrecognizable. Sweet, obedient children became defiant and cold, often speaking in hushed tones about the whispering man. They would draw disturbing pictures of a tall, shadowy figure with elongated limbs and hollow eyes, standing amongst the trees of Blackwood Forest. The stories they told were chilling. They spoke of a voice, soft and beguiling, that called to them from the depths of the forest. It promised them wonders, treasures hidden beneath the roots of ancient trees, but as they followed the voice deeper into the woods, it would change. The gentle whispers became harsh, commanding them to obey, to follow, to never look back. Those who did were never seen again. The town's elders, who had long dismissed the stories as mere superstition, began to recall old tales passed down through generations. Legends spoke of a man who once lived in the heart of the forest centuries ago. He was a recluse, a hermit who practiced dark rituals, seeking to commune with the spirits of the woods. The townspeople had shunned him, calling him a witch, and one night, in a fit of fear and anger, they set his cabin ablaze. The man perished in the flames, but not before cursing the town and vowing that his spirit would remain in Blackwood Forest, waiting for revenge. As the town grew desperate, a group of brave men and women decided to venture into the forest to confront the evil that lurked within. Among them was Clara, Tommy's mother, who was determined to find out what had happened to her son. Armed with little more than torches and their wits, they entered Blackwood Forest, the oppressive darkness swallowing them whole. The deeper they went, the more the forest seemed to close in around them. The trees, gnarled and twisted, loomed like silent sentinels, their branches creaking in the windless night. It wasn't long before they began to hear it, the whispering. It was soft at first, almost indistinguishable from the rustling of leaves, but it grew louder, more insistent, echoing all around them. The voice was seductive, promising them safety, warmth, and riches beyond their wildest dreams, if only they would follow. But Clara was not fooled. She held tightly to the photograph of Tommy she had brought with her, a reminder of why she was there. She called out to her son, her voice trembling but determined, demanding that the whispering man show himself. The forest responded with a deafening silence, and then from the shadows he emerged. The whispering man was tall and gaunt, his form barely human. His skin was pale, almost translucent, and his eyes were hollow voids that seemed to pull in all light. He moved with an unnatural grace, his limbs too long and too thin. As he stepped closer, the whispering grew louder, filling their minds with thoughts that were not their own. But Clara did not waver. She demanded that he release her son and the other children he had taken. The whispering man tilted his head, as if considering her request, and then he smiled, a cold, malevolent smile that sent shivers down her spine. "You cannot save them," he hissed. "They are mine now, bound to this forest just as I am." But Clara was not alone. The others, driven by the same desperation and love for their children, stood by her side. Together they faced the whispering man, refusing to be swayed by his promises or his threats. In that moment, the forest seemed to come alive, the trees groaning and creaking as the ground beneath their feet trembled. The whispering man's smile faltered, and for the first time there was fear in his hollow eyes. The townsfolk, with Clara at their lead, drove him back, their torches burning bright against the encroaching darkness. They did not stop until they reached a clearing where the ruins of the old hermit's cabin lay. There, in the center of the clearing, they found a circle of stones, a place of power, where the whispering man had once practiced his dark rituals. Without hesitation, they began to dismantle the circle, scattering the stones and breaking the curse that had bound the whispering man to the forest for so long. As the last stone was cast aside, the whispering man let out a terrible, ear-piercing scream that echoed through the trees, and then he was gone, leaving nothing but silence in his wake. The children who had been taken began to emerge from the shadows, confused and frightened but alive. As they made their way back to the town, the forest seemed to lose its darkness, the oppressive atmosphere lifting as the first light of dawn broke through the trees. Ravenswood was never the same after that night, but the children eventually recovered, though they could never fully forget their time in the forest. Blackwood Forest remained, but the townsfolk no longer feared it. The whispering man was gone, his curse broken, and the forest was finally at peace. But still, on quiet nights when the wind blew just right, some claimed they could hear a faint whispering from deep within the woods, a reminder that some secrets never truly die.